Thank you everyone for taking the time. This will just be a bit of a brief introduction and teaser into Kincora. Some pretty interesting background there from Giovanni on the copper play and copper outlook. We're at the exploration stage. Relatively new story to the public capital markets. In 2016, we completed a transaction to consolidate 1,000 square kilometres of the best parts of the Devonian copper belt in southern Gobi in Mongolia, where most investors would know of Oyu Tolgoi, which is the largest expansion project in the industry at the moment. Off the back of doing that deal, we were able to attract an industry-leading team who have made multiple Tier 1 discoveries in the past. We've just undertaken a capital raising over the Northern Hemisphere Summer to get about $6 million in Treasury and undertake the first Tier 1 systematic exploration across this belt. That capital raising was supported by a couple of groups that did extensive due diligence, one being a private equity group, RCF, out of Denver, the other being the European Bank of Reconstruction, which is a large investor in Mongolia and more specifically this copper belt. So we've just kicked off a 20,000 metre drill program over the next 9-12 months. We're testing 3 mineralised systems this field season, and we've appointed an independent consultant to take a review of a previous discovery that we've made over an extensive lower grade with localised higher grade system. So it's a bit of an introduction. Why are we interested in the southern Gobi? The land there in dark orange is our land position, 1,400 square kilometres. What a mature copper belt looks like is on the right-hand side. That's northern Chile. Within the same landmass in that blue box on the left and the right-hand sides, you see in northern Chile an arc parallel structure with arc transverses within it. If you went to that area in northern Chile back in the 1970s, there was a handful of existing old mines. Today you've got 15 producing copper mines supplying over 10% of the world's copper. The point being from this slide that copper porphyries generally happen in established mineralised belts within the right structures. Within the southern Gobi here, you've got Oyu Tolgoi, which as mentioned is the largest expansion project taking place. In the industry, that'll be the third biggest copper mine in the world when that second phase is completed. You've got Seven Savaga, which is a $1 billion construction project, over $350 million spent to date, and not much exploration done within that belt. You've got another junior there, Karmatai, which is owned by Xanadu Mine, getting some very good exploration results. And then within this Devonian belt, we're just starting to get the rigs turning, as mentioned. So Bronze Fox is Kincora's historical flagship asset. I joined the company in 2012 after the Tourmaline Hills and Bronze Fox licences were consolidated. 1,000 metres of good copper was drilled with 37 metres of over 1% copper equivalent within that. And there was significant interest in this copper belt back in those days. It was almost mandatory for the majors to be getting a foothold in this belt. As mentioned, during the downturn, we were able to do a deal to consolidate the Bayan-Tal Ugly complex and East Seven Savaga that sits within that Devonian belt. And that transaction was with a junior called Ibex that was formed by Govan Friedland, Robert's son, and the chief geophysicist from Ivanhoe, Grant Hendrickson. And they looked to consolidate the best parts of that belt that were available at that time between and on strike from the two mines and development projects. There hasn't been any systematic exploration across that portfolio. At Bayan-Tal, Ibex had drilled 17 holes and we're getting some pretty okay results, 18 metres of 0.66, 0.75% copper at or near surface. So as mentioned, off the back of that Ibex deal, we were able to attract a pretty strong team. Peter Lehman was credited with the discovery of Reko Diq, a Tier 1 asset in Pakistan. He ran the BHP joint venture across this belt when they came back between 2006 and 2009, then joined Panos, which was a pretty good success copper play that got bought out by the Chinese. John Holliday, he joined us on the board. He is credited with the discovery of Cadia, Tier 1 copper porphyry that made or supported Newcrest becoming Australia's biggest gold miner. Then you've got a team, the rest of the board there, that have lived through the previous downturn and cycle and stuck it through because we knew that this cycle would turn, and when it did, we wanted to have an expanded foothold within this belt. So what are we doing? Off the back of that $5.9 million raising, we've commenced drilling. We've started drilling at East 7 Savaga. We've done 14 holes, 8 of which have been positive in confirming that we're in the same Devonian age intrusion as the billion-dollar construction project that's occurring on the western margin, and supporting our concept that that's the first Devonian intrusion in the belt since Oyu Tolgoi. We're also drilling at Bayantal, dot number 2 up on the map. That's the area previously mentioned where ibex were getting some reasonably good intersections, 18 metres of ore-grade copper at and or near surface based on just geophysics. We've just completed a first phase program there. Both East 7 Savaga and Bayantal will undertake multiple phase programs that this budget supports drilling next year. We'll do another 5,000 metres at both of those targets in 2018 based on some further geophysics that's planned over the winter period. Ugly Massive Complex, we've just commenced drilling that onto hole 3 at the moment. That's a completely untested complex that's previously had outcropping copper gold. It's interpreted for us to be the third large intrusion within that Devonian belt that we're testing this field season. At the same time, Red Well is a project that we picked up 18 months ago directly from the state. It sits up directly north of Oyu Tolgoi and its mineralised trend. It was a bit of a surprise to see Rio Tinto on the licence adjacent to the south start drilling this field season. That's the first time since 2015 that there's been any drilling by Rio or Turquoise Hill in this belt. And as previously mentioned, Bronze Fox, we've appointed a consultant to put some numbers behind a previous discovery there that was impacted by a dispute for a couple of years, and there's probably about 200 million tonnes of up to 0.3% copper there, only 22,000 metres undertaken, so we'll try and put some parameters around that to assist with future exploration. And as mentioned before, and you'll see coming up presenting relatively soon, Xanadu Mines has done very well with drilling a similar carboniferous system at Karmatai, where they've got a sort of 160, 170 million market cap and 200 million tonne resource with some pretty encouraging results of late. So I suppose just to sum up, given that we're coming towards the end of this, we own 100% interest, a dominant position in a world-class underexplored copper belt. Ibex was controlled or is controlled by high-powered exploration, which Robert Friedland's the chairman and CEO of. They've become shareholders in us through this transaction. There's no clawbacks, there's no royalties, there's nothing that gives them a seat at the table that's different from any minority shareholder. We've got a team that's got an exceptional track record of finding tier 1 assets and was attracted to us after the Ibex deal, that has skin in the game. The board and management team were meaningful investors in the last raising that we did. 30% of the registers represented on the board, so we're aligned to shareholders, and the majority of remuneration for the technical team and the board is in shares. We've got a multiple phase drill program at targets 1 and 2. First phase, 3,000 metres at both those targets have confirmed our geological models to date. We'll come in second phase drill program first quarter next year or second quarter next year and see if we can start getting some better mineralisation and move towards a discovery on hopefully 1 or potentially 2 of those targets. At the same time, we're working up the rest of our pipeline with our target 3 and 4 strategy. Geophysics at Red Well has been undertaken and we'll look to drill that potentially next year, and at the same time the rigs have already been turning at the Ugly complex. Bronze Fox, where we've previously made a large lower grade discovery, we'll get some parameters about that discovery out to the market to help quantify that and assist with peer valuations. At the same time, we've got a pretty good understanding of this belt. There are other licences within this belt that we would like to get our hands on. Mongolian government has said that they want to increase the amount of exploration land available, which is about 6% at the moment, up into the 20s, and I think you'll start to see them early in the new year starting to issue new ground, and that'll be an attractive catalyst for new entrants to potentially come back to Mongolia. So there's been a fair bit of foundations over the last 12-18 months to get the funding in place for the work program that's got another 9-12 months to go. So number of catalysts, a bit of hard work to get in this position, but a new story to the public markets, and thank you very much for being introduced to it.